Hi guys, it's CJ. Welcome back to my channel. This is my January wrap up. It is March and this is late. That's all I'm going to say about it. This is also my second time filming, hopefully the full video. I've started it about 5 times and I keep messing up. And then I finally recorded the whole thing and it had no audio. Things happen. I'm a mess. It's alright. My first book that I read in January is After the Flood by Cassandra Montaigne. This follows Myra and Pearl as they try and survive a world in which the water levels have risen and the earth is now flooded. There are peaks of mountains where there are colonies and people live, but overall most people live on boats, which is what they do. They survive by fishing, selling their fishes and all of that. Myra is Pearl's mother and she is focused heavily on them surviving. She lost her daughter. Her father stole Myra's husband. Her daughter's father stole her just as the waters were rising and ran away with her, and she believes her to be dead, but she gets a hint of where she might be and that she might be alive. So the story follows her as she tries to get to this place and get her back and save her. A lot happens. This is a very bleak story from its content matter to the things that happen. And while the story is very fast-paced and action-packed, I quite often felt like I was waiting for the plot to happen, and when things were happening, it felt very convenient. And I know that things happen so the plot can move forward. It was just kind of like, well, that was lucky. How did that happen? Overall, I did enjoy it. It is a 3-star read for me. I really loved Montaigne's writing, but there was things I had issues with. 1, the plot convenience. 2, there was a little bit of a romance, and it was hard to root or care for them, simply for the fact that Myra didn't know how she felt, which I understand. I've been there, but her flipping back and forth and saying one thing but doing another made it really hard to care. I also didn't like the character. Most of the characters are unlikable, which made it hard to root for them and want good things to happen. Though reading the story where most of the characters are unlikable, even the children, is very interesting and intriguing. Bad things happen in this. Essentially, by the time I got to the end, I was kind of like, what is the point of this story? You start, there is a very precise plot and what they want to happen. By the time you get to the end, nothing really happens. They could have gone through all of this and ended up in the same place. Instead, now they are stuck and we don't know how they're going to survive when the story leaves off. So yeah, I don't know. I found it hard to care. It was 3 stars because overall I thought it was okay, and once again I enjoyed the writing, but I could have done without it. I believe I will try more books by her for the writing, and I did enjoy the premise of this. It just wasn't for me. And I'm okay with a non-happy ending. I just felt like, kind of like the first Indiana Jones movie, where if you did nothing, they would have ended up in the same predicament. So I don't know, it's hard. I'm a mess once again. This is my second time doing it, so I'm sorry. My second book that I read was Scythe by Neil Shusterman. This is a dystopian world. I do the hand gesture because most dystopian worlds are also dystopian. Essentially, this is a world in which people are immortal. No one is poor. There isn't a lot of crime. The Thunderhead, which is an AI computer, keeps everything in check except for the Scythedom, which is a collective of people who glean the population, which is kill them so that they don't have too many people in the world, because population control is still important. It follows Citra and Rowan, 2 teens who were enlisted to learn how to be scythes, and they go through the program. However, only one of them can become a scythe by the end of it. I loved the fact that overall the AI was not the villain. I'm okay with computers being a villain, but it's good. I'm happy. It's different. Overall, the humans are the villains. Most of them in the Scythedom, because they're unchecked by the Thunderhead. They're not controlled and policed. they're in charge of their own, which means that they have too much power and some want more, which I found really interesting. I liked the analyzation of humans and what they can do and how they can become evil over, you know, a computer. While this was slower than I was expecting, I'm sorry if I'm looking down, I have notes. I think the story overall benefited from it. It had fantastic world building, political intrigue. Throughout this video, you will realize I love political intrigue, and I think that makes the pace work. There's also twists and turns, and while some of them I saw coming, I liked how we got there. I liked how the story progressed, and even if I guessed things, I was overall happy with it. The only part of the story that I did not like was the romance between Citra and Rowan. I loved their chemistry as friends. I didn't really think it needed or benefited from them having a bit more of a romantic side to it. It wasn't bad enough that I didn't enjoy it. This was a 4 out of 5 star read, and as soon as I finished it, I went out and bought the second and third one. I have now read the second one, and I'm halfway through the third one. So we enjoyed this. I think that's all I have to say. I'm sorry, once again, this is the second time I'm doing it, so I'm like, what have I said and what have I not? The next book that I read was Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. I read most of this last year, but I finished it this year. I read the audiobook, which I think I benefited from. It is a very slow-paced story, and it is very character-driven. Don't get me wrong, a lot happens in this, and there's once again a lot of political intrigue. It's about royals. Fitz is essentially the bastard of a prince, and his grandfather, the king, enlists him to be a king's man and trains him up to be an assassin, and that's what this follows. I'm not going to go too into the depths of this because this is the second book in a trilogy. I enjoyed this as much as the last book, and I like how Hobb expanded on the story where it left off. It continued in a way that felt realistic, and we got more of the magic system and world building and everything. However, once again, it is very character driven. There is magic. Fitz has the wit, which essentially means he can connect and talk to animals in his mind, which I love and adore. I don't know how to go into it without spoiling it. I love this series. I mean, it's very slow. I do understand how people would have issues. I think if I was reading it, I would have issues with the slow pace, but because it's the audio book, I really enjoyed it. This has one of the villains I hate the most. It has Prince Regal, who is Fitzchivalry's uncle. He's a horrible person, and he's petty, and he's like a kid throwing a tantrum, but he has so much power, so he's actually dangerous. And I don't think I've hated a character this much since Littlefinger in Game of Thrones. I despised him. But if you can get me to hate a character that much, it's a good character. My other issue with the story was, once again, the romance. Fitz has a romance with Molly, who he grew up with, and we saw their friendship as children in the first book. And this one, they come back together and they fall in love. We see a lot of character connections and progressions in this, but I just felt that one wasn't there. I didn't see their development. I understand why they grew attracted to each other. Sometimes when you're kids and you grow up together and you start finding yourself attracted to whatever gender, you can I'm getting into romance, and you confuse attraction for love, and I do think that very much happened in this. However, you never really see that. It's just they fall in love, they love each other, and I wasn't into it. I'm not into them together. I'm actually interested in, I really like Fitz and the Fool. I love their friendship. They're both beautiful. The Fool is amazing. He is the court jester. He is also a prophet. I love him. He's of an undeterminable, that's not right, but whatever, gender and age, so we don't really know a lot about him. I call him him because that is what Fitz calls him, but Fitz even says that we can't really tell. And I like them. It may not happen. Whatever, it's fine. I love their friendship. That is all that matters. I'm not interested in him and Molly. I also don't really like Molly as a person. Fitz has a lot of secrets. He's a king's man and he's an assassin, but he does what he does. It's not just for his king, it is for his family. And she doesn't really understand that and throws tantrums about it, which I kind of get, but it's annoying, so I don't like that. But the rest of it I thoroughly enjoyed. They're big books. I also finished the third one, which I'll talk about in my February wrap-up. The next book I read, I am late to the party on this one, okay? But it is Divergent. The hype scared me with this one. I've owned it for quite a few years, but I put it off. But I'm doing a TBR job where I'm pulling out books and I have to read at least one. This one I read, and you know what? I get it. I'm not as obsessed with it as everyone else. I gave it 3.5 stars, but I enjoyed it and I get why everyone was obsessed with it. I don't know if I have to talk about the plot of this one, but it's essentially another dystopian world where people are divided into these factions. There's intelligence, bravery, honesty. I can't remember them all. This is the problem with doing a wrap-up 2 months later. But I really enjoyed it and I loved how it was done. I loved the characters. Triss is amazing. She is a strong female character, but you see her struggle. She was in the Selflessness faction. I'm sorry to everyone that read this and is getting annoyed. I do have the names written down. I think it's Amnesty. Yes. And she joins the Brave faction. But essentially, she did this test, which everyone has to do, and she could have been put into 3 different factions, which makes her divergent, which is scary to a lot of these people because it's against what they want. But you see her go into initiation, and I loved the trials and tests. I thought they made so much sense and everything like that. There's also very interesting characters and everything like that. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the characters and everything like that. I said more last time I recorded it, but I'm now blanking. Overall, I enjoyed it. I also watched the movie for the first time and loved it. I'll be doing a mini TV wrap-up at some point. Don't know why I did that. But I'll definitely be continuing with the rest of these books. I get it. I get it. I'm so late to the party. My next read was The Sword of Destiny. I can't say his name. But this is the second prequel book in the Witcher series, and it follows a bunch of short stories following Geralt, who's a witcher and a monster hunter, and he has these powers. You might have seen the TV show by now. I read the first book last year. I watched the TV show, and then I read this one. This one does have 2 or 3 stories that were in the TV show, mainly the ones that follow Ciri. The first one is kind of a monster of the week, and it very much has a fairy tale retelling moments in it. This one also has that, but it mainly focuses on character development, specifically between Geralt and Yennefer, who is the woman that he loves. And we see moments of them together, their relationship and everything like that. I really enjoyed it as much as the last one, especially the last 2 stories, which are about Ciri, who is Geralt's surprise child. And overall, I can't wait for the rest of the books. I currently bought them. I recently bought them, and that is when the true stories come in. I'm not going to go into too much detail because they are short stories. I do want to do a separate video where I talk about what happens in each story, but I'm not going to do that now. Overall, enjoyed it. My next read was The Girl King by Mimi Yu. This follows Lu, who all her life has been preparing to be the first female emperor, the Girl King. Upon the announcement that she will not be the emperor, she will in fact be marrying her cousin Set while he becomes emperor, she refuses and she challenges him to see who's more worthy. She is the rightful emperor as far as lineage goes, but her mother essentially persuaded her father to make Set the emperor. Set always believed that he was the rightful heir since he was male. He isn't expecting to have to fight for it, and he uses tricks, and he has a magician on his side, and it eventually leads to him attempting to kill her. She runs away and tries to rally people so she can come back and get her throne. This is when she runs into Nock, who is the last of his kith, which is a tribe of shapeshifters. This I found really interesting. I kind of thought it was going to be a werewolf, but his personal tribe does turn into wolves. However, a lot of other kiths shapeshift into other animals, such as deer and birds and everything, and I found that so interesting. There is then Min, who is Lu's younger sister. She's always been in her sister's shadow, and she tries everything she can to please her mother. She's very quiet, but in this story, she finds out that she has these magical abilities and she's very strong. And Set and her mother then try to use her, and they try and marry. Oh, they do. I'm pretty sure it's in the back. Marry her to Set. Mimi Yu weaves this story very well. It's a vast world. The magical system is very intriguing. As mentioned, it's inspired by East Asian history, culture, and mythology. And I personally don't know if I thought it was done well. I personally don't know how realistic it was. I can't comment on that. I haven't done research or anything like that, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. It is a story that we have seen before. Strong female character traveling with hot dude, queen trying to reclaim her throne, but I thought it was done incredibly well. There was a moment when they were traveling where something happened and I was kind of like, oh, I wish they kept traveling instead of this, whatever. But overall, I enjoyed it. I'm sorry, I just knocked my table and the camera's shaking. And Mimi Yu's writing is fantastic. I can't wait for the next book, which comes out this year. I have it 3.5 stars, in case I didn't say that. That is all. I'm pretty sure that's all I've read. That's all I had to say. I hope you enjoyed. I'm sorry it was a mess, and I'm sorry it was late, but you know, practice makes perfect. We'll get there eventually. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you join me next time. My February review should be up next week, if I'm good. Who knows? We'll find out then. Bye bye for now.